to like what we were originally thinking in terms of like, hey, let's talk about sports and politics. Now there's definitely sports happening and there's definitely politics happening, but the worlds haven't really collided recently. I don't know what's your take. What I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on like, there's all these rallies and protests, pro-Palestinian. Why hasn't that kind of like leaked into sports and talking heads? Like it's on campuses, it's a thing that everyone is discussing. How come no player, no sport team, no thing has spoke out about it? Any thoughts?
Columbia is 5 minutes from me, Columbia University.
Yep.
The narrative is so, I think it depends who you listen to. And you have people who are very in support of the Palestinians. You have people who are anti, and you have people who support the Jewish students, and you have Jewish students who are supporting the Palestinians as well. And there's so many different mixes. And as a matter of fact, there's a whole group that goes in front of some streets are closed down, not too far from me. And you have a group of people who go in front of the president of Colombia, in front of her house, and screaming and yelling at her. The pro-Palestinian. I read an article about I think it was a Cornell student. It was an Ivy League student who talked about his article basically referenced that because you're pro-Palestinian does not mean you're anti-Israel.
Right.
I think so. I think the answer to your question is, I think you have some people that aren't informed, and you have some people who are informed but don't want to necessarily speak out.
Right.
Right? A lot of people aren't speaking out because for fear of retribution, for fear of being penalized, and for some people, it's going to be. This is polarizing. This is another polarizing issue. I think we've had some polarizing issues in the last couple of years. Right? For a while, I feel like there was a lot of complacency,
Right.
or there was a lot of just hanging out, not doing much in the 90s of the early 2000s, right? But now you've got Colin Kaepernick, you've got Trump, you've got the Israel-Palestine issue. And there's a lot. You got George Floyd, whole George Floyd. What should I link to Colin Kaepernick? Right. And what's interesting is if George Floyd and Black Lives Matter was going on not during the pandemic, the same thing, some of the same issues would be happening, right? Whereas people graduating, college campuses would be torn apart. I did see one really, really, really disgusting, disturbing video where a woman in Mississippi, I don't know if it was Mississippi State or University of Mississippi, was protesting a black woman, and there were all these white fraternity kids screaming, yelling at her, and one was making monkey noises and signs. Did you see that?
Oh, that's terrible.
And they doubled down, the fraternity doubled down, and the guy doubled down and like promoted themselves and being proud of what they were doing. Then
Wow.
he got outed and he deleted all his social media.
Uh, Rightfully so.
And there was a like the video showing him making monkey noises and like and expressions at this woman. And so clearly, he's now, he wouldn't be, of course, apologizing. I don't think he's ever apologized, but he wouldn't be deleting his social media if he didn't get caught and made to look like a fool,
Right.
or really understood that, guess what? You're an idiot. People are going to come after you. And hopefully he loses a job. Hopefully he gets kicked out of school. Hopefully the fraternity gets shut down. There's no tolerance. I have zero tolerance.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And in the South and in some other areas, people still are brave, right, and promote their racism. Right? Idaho, the trucks and the harassment, the racial harassment that the women's basketball team during the tournament, the Utah women's team, suffered, and they had to play. Had to stay 30 minutes away from Spokane, where they were playing, and they were somewhat for some reason placed. I think because the hotels were too crowded. And this guy, it was discovered that this one guy called him the N word, and finally got arrested or charged, but he's not being charged. They said there's nothing they can charge him with. And people are saying, well, what about harassment? And they're saying, no, free speech. So, is it, are we on the heels of, you know, of who's to become president? And there's a lot of Biden went on TV and made and did this speech yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before about horrible anti-Semitism is, which it is. Are we addressing anti-racism against every group? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I don't know.
Is this all part of election year and you know, protests again happening on election year seems a little coincidental, but I also know, the Israel-Palestinian conflict has gone on for way longer than any election. But it's kind of interesting the timing of it all. I have no idea. I also feel like I mean, for me, listening to it and understanding it, it feels, if you're in your own little bubble in your own little world, it doesn't have a direct impact on as many people, right? Like, when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, blacks versus whites, almost, that feels very American, right? It feels more immediately impactful, whereas Israel versus Palestinian, there's like an whole education thing that needs to happen. And we're so American egocentric that it is hard for people to take a dive into a conflict first to understand it. Like just that education gap immediately means people are like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to care about that because I don't understand it. And then um, that that creates the sort of like, hey, what's going on here? Is this something I should care about or not? How does this impact me? And then you see the protests where, obviously there are people that are directly impacted, um, kind of protesting and making some noise, but like there are too many people that this doesn't impact, that they don't have any interest in it. And that creates this feeling of like, should we care about this? Should we not? I don't like that's my feeling towards it. Maybe like an American basketball player or football player that isn't of either descent Israeli or Palestinian is going to have a hard time taking a stand on this matter, right? Is that fair?
Absolutely, absolutely fair. Um, the other piece is I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were saying how it's not an American issue. So why should people be protesting on college campuses? And I was like, well, it is an American issue because the United States is financially supporting a war
Right,
genocide.
right,
So you people who consider that and think about that, and they are protesting that.
right,
And I don't think he thought about that, right? Like one of the reasons that it's like apartheid. There was a huge call and a huge protest for the United States to divest, and that's what one of the conditions that people who are protesting are yelling about.
right,
Right? You're supporting a war. You're supporting what's deemed as genocide. Wait a minute. Let's not do that because this is my moral compass.
right,
My ethics tell me no one, this humanity across the world, no one should die. Right. I also had a friend, oh, guy I know, text me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, do you see what's going on in Colombia? Text me and another guy. Let's go support the Israeli students. And I was like, okay. He was at my house for my dad's when my dad passed, and people came to visit. And what's interesting is like my family did the other night we did Black Seder, Black Passover, right? And which is much different than most Passovers than any other Passover. My dad was Jewish, I'm Jewish and Polish, and the guy came over, and my dad wrote lots of books, and there's revolutionary books in my parents' home. It was interesting, kind of curious that he would actually text that to me. Let's go.
I mean, when's the last time you participated in a protest, or if you have ever?
Yeah, I was born in a protest. It was on my dad's shoulders during the '60s, '70s rather, '70s, and I guess early '80s. Not his shoulders during the early '80s, but '70s. And he was a leader, he was a political leader in this country, and for human rights and civil rights. And and then I think the last one I went to, ironically, my brother is at them often. My mom is at many every week, and unfortunately, the last one I went to was to support Tawana Brawley, which was a young girl who claimed she was raped, and it was all fake. She made up a story, which was really unfortunate. I think that was the last one. So that was
What
years
year
ago.
was that?
Years ago. That was like '90s.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just don't remember. I feel like I must have been at one since, but no. So when you're not aware, how much do you care? Or it's not against the people, your people,
Right.
it's got a direct impact to influence on you. How much do you really care?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough, and it's like I get it. I'm like similar. I understand when I look at it, it is confusing. Like I don't really totally understand, and like I'm cognizant, like similar to, remember we talked about Daryl Morey talking about Hong Kong and China war. I remember my feeling was that this has nothing to do with, I'm sure you have an opinion, you've been there, but like this is history. This is many generations are impacted by this. And for, someone who does business in Hong Kong or China or has friends there and gonna step up and say something, it's kind of, it feels like it's an uneducated position, and to me I don't want to do that. And so I'm like, hey, I don't really understand this. I don't know how it impacts the people there. I don't know the history of it, nor can I. Like truthfully, I can do some research, but how do you really know until you're part of it? So I tend to stay away from it, and maybe that's the wrong way to take on it, but I can't be on every single thing. It's just impossible. So maybe that's a horrible way to look at it, but that's kind of the stance I took on it.
I mean, there's apathy, right? And there's a lot of apathy, especially there's so many different distractions in this country.
Right,
You've got sports, you've got video games, you've got clothes fashion, you've got music, and until they cross culture, right?
right,
Playoffs are on, man. Like
right,
I'm gonna, I don't know how many people across this country are thinking playoff after playoffs and about what's going on in the Middle East. The people are going to be quick to judgment and say, look at those Palestinian people protesting, or look at the people supporting Palestinians. Shame on them, right? Just because they're protesting and people aren't going to say anti-protest. And guess what? Like I don't. There are a lot of people in this country whose lives, like, why are you rocking the boat?
right.
Like my life is great here. How dare you fuck my
Right.
country up and my people up and my situation up?
That
Right?
yeah, that makes me wonder what would it take to really get going on a like for the average person to be like, you know what, I'm gonna get off my chair and go protest. Like what would that take for you? Like what would be the thing?
Education, right? Understanding what's really at what's the root,
Right,
passion, education, passion, and like actually feeling like something's really wrong. Like this is not okay,
right,
right? This is so unjust and unfair. At what point do we like stop? The world stops and we're saying, you know what? I need to do something about this. I personally need to do something about this. Right? And it's not just have conversations, more than have conversations. Maybe out in the streets. I need to do writing letters or, you know, okay. So my last protest, T Dubs, that I can remember, was during the boycott, was during when the UVA players stood up or kneeled.
right,
and I was heavy on social media. I was heavy on the
All right.
UVA Facebook, basketball Facebook page.
All right.
I was heavy on that, right? And got in some major battles. And that's an issue that's really hits home with me because I've been falsely arrested. I've had family members beaten up. I've had one family member basically killed by the police. Um, my parents fought during the civil rights movement. They were on the front lines. So, but so I think again, very educated about it. I'm extremely passionate about it, and it hits home for me. It
Right.
really hits, and I've had lots of arguments about it, and I've had conversations with people to get them to see the light. Um, so I guess it depends on what you mean by when's the last time I protested.
Right. No, I mean, like going out and marching or taking a stand or being physically out of place. Yeah.
Yeah, versus like, okay, I'm doing what I feel like my part on Facebook or social media or whatever it is.
Right.
Um,
To
I
really
think
go to a place and I'm thinking like the sign is in your hand and you're marching. Like that's a protest to me, which I personally haven't done that ever before. I'm not gonna rule it out, but kind of like nothing is. I've never hit all the things that you talked about that in terms of education, passion, direct impact, and feel like I need to go make that difference. And maybe that's on me, but that's, you know,
but I also, yeah, no, and I also admire and like admire incredibly the people who like get out there
totally.
that they're not that doesn't impact them directly. I mean,
Yeah,
it does if you're a humanitarian, right? Because it should affect all of us. So in that way, well, it's indirectly, right? People are dying. There's genocide being committed against a group of people right now.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's incredible. I'm with you. I admire. I'm like, how do you find the time and the courage to stand up for these things? Like to find, like you said, to find the passion and the time to be like, you know what, I'm going to fight for these people. It has nothing to do with me, but I feel like it's wrong, and I'm going to go do something about it. Like that's incredible. Like you know, I'm a weak man. I don't do like I don't have that in me to go like fight for causes and all of like I just wasn't taught that way and built that way, probably because of how we got into this country. So, um, but I admire it. I think it's incredible.
When you look at the Black Lives Matter protest, right? You look at the people, the collection of the people, it was a huge white population
Huge. Yeah.
protesting,
Yeah.
massive.
There's definitely a type of personality that is much more likely to protest, right? In general, like that is just with that lifestyle. Like I'm thinking of down the street in Berkeley. Like there are some people there that are just willing to protest and fight for right versus wrong with that. Whatever they feel like is right, they're gonna go fight for that, and they don't mind putting their time and effort and body on the line, freedom on the line to go do that. I think it's admirable. That's incredible.
It is, especially when you like. I'm putting my mouth where my money is. Like,
Yeah,
step up to the plate. I believe in this holistically. I believe in like, and I'm willing to sacrifice, major sacrifice.
right.
That's
That's awesome. I think part of it when I look real obviously we're looking deeply into this thing, but when I think about how I was raised, I was always my parents always treated that we're guests in this country like we were invited here to participate and be citizens. So you have to respect it. And to me, protesting something is something my parents would have never done because they'd be like, no, 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 no. When we're invited, we can be kicked out too. Like you don't go ruffle any feathers. So I think, and maybe that'll change for my kids. They're going to feel more entitled and feel more ownership. But I don't have that sort of a feeling of, hey, I need to, like have that ownership of this country. And like to me, I still feel like, hey, I'm a guest in someone's house and I'm not gonna go tell them how to decorate shit in the house. Like it's their house. Like, and maybe that will change, with generations. But that's kind of, I guess that's probably a first generation kind of immigrant feeling, but I could be wrong.
It makes sense. Makes a ton of sense, right? And then, does that mean the people that were brought here unwillingly, like the slaves, and because of years of oppression,
All right.
now you're much more willing to like put yourself on the line? I think,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I mean, during Black Lives Matter, it was a different type of protest, a different type of people. I think it was somewhat diverse, but
Yeah. It's kind of like, and there are probably a lot of people like, I won't I say like me, but that have that feeling of like, hey, I'm not quite American and I'm not quite from my hometown. I'm kind of in this middle, like nomadic like person. And so it doesn't feel like you have a true home. You're kind of just out there. So you don't have a sort of a home base. You don't have a thing to stand on, which makes it more likely that you're gonna kind of stand on the sidelines when other people are so passionate about things. You're like, oh, I don't really know my place in the world, let alone war in this war.
that and yeah, I don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah,
It's good for me, and I think it also depends on your situation too. Right? If you're in a good situation, you're a guest, and you've done well. What am I really complaining about?
right.
I'm not necessarily saying specifically you. I'm just saying a lot of people in general.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I
It's
think there
relative.
is something to that.
It's relative to what doing well means, but I hear you. It makes a lot of sense what you just said. And how does someone change that within you or within themselves if they want to, and maybe they don't want to, and it makes sense too. Like next generation, like so, my friend of mine, um, who's having issues with his children, two adopted kids from China, and in general, um, we had a battle, and we've had a couple of battles, like battle about Colin Kaepernick and standing up for the national anthem, and he was like, "Oh wow, I never looked at it that way. I see the point now." Long, huge battle, right? And I made 10, 12 points. One of them being that the song is written by a slave owner. The second verse is, "We're going to kill slaves," right? So we've talked about this too. Again, two Chinese adopted kids, and he's Jewish, and he's also supporting basically Israel. And his daughter, one of his daughters, has been extremely, extremely demonstrative in her attacks on Israel. And he's got another friend who's so supportive of Israel and Netanyahu. And she pointed out to him that his daughter has been critical of Israel, right? And so I don't know if that's part of the issue too. I don't think so. Just I think it's just typical. Like sometimes people, kids and parents go through a thing. But you know, there are when you talk about second generation and you talk about, I think it's young people too,
Right.
right? It's older people sometimes. Although my mom is out protesting every week about something. But I think also you have a youth group. There's people who are upset, people who are angry, right? In general, there's a big youth movement, right? Not everybody's satisfied. I think that social media also has stuff to do with it, right? People see a post of someone being killed or shot or being treated poorly, and like that's horrible. It's horrific. It's not okay, right? It's like the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
That's what got a lot of people protesting.
All
The
right.
video of the Vietnam War, right? Seeing the horrific treatment, seeing the tragic, the tragedies and the videos of people being killed and maimed and villages being burned. That got people going, and I think you see some of that same stuff now with young people when they see social media posts, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen a few posts that have been like, wow. And it's polarizing in New York City alone.
Yeah,
Like, wow.
I imagine New York has a heavy Jewish and um sort of Middle Eastern, right? Like that's probably I mean, big cities, obviously, but I feel like the Jewish concentration is Israeli concentration is higher in New York than anywhere else in the country. And then, I imagine the pro-Palestinian, the sort of people that are siding and relate and have family in the Middle East that know of this stuff. It's probably all in New York. Not all, but a big chunk of them are in New York, um, which probably makes for a really passionate group of people, right? Like the Bay Area, I haven't seen as much. I mean, you know, I don't think the Jewish population is heavy. I definitely think, um, like Palestinians are here for sure. There are big communities of them here, but I haven't seen a ton of like protests or anything like that, which is kind of strange.
Southern California, yes.
Southern California, yeah, but I'm talking Bay Area.
I don't, I don't ever remember there being a lot of outside of Asian and white. I don't know how ethnically diverse San Francisco is, right? And I don't know how many Jews are in San Francisco, but there's a
Yeah, I
lot.
don't either. I don't know. I mean, it seems very transient and people are kind of mixed and all over the place and there's less of that. But I know Berkeley was heavy protesting. I haven't heard much though out of that Berkeley, Stanford. I know there are a lot of Palestinians in like Fremont and East Bay and San Jose in those areas. Um, but yeah, I haven't seen a ton of protests and a lot of uprising about it, which is surprising.
So yeah, I mean, considering the history of San Francisco,
Yeah. Yeah, you would have thought they would be up in arms and out and about, but maybe everyone's left. I have no idea.
San Francisco's completely changed now,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, you go there to protest and you end up probably being addicted to fentanyl. So, probably, probably other issues. Like I have no idea. Just, you know, uh,
Uh,
yeah, it's a strange time right now. But will we see an NBA player during this playoff say anything? Step up? I mean, we got a bunch of international, players. Do you think they've gotten training to say, hey, stay out of this one?
that's a really good question because in the past they've been told, I think, be careful,
Yeah,
right? And I don't know if that's, you know, definitely the word, but you have a lot of owners who are extremely wealthy, right?
yeah,
And who are influential, and definitely on the WNBA side, you saw it.
right.
And the NBA side,
I watched the interview with Brittany Griner. Did you watch that?
I didn't see it. I have the New York Magazine on my desk, and haven't it came out 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't read the article yet, so I want to read it. But no, I didn't watch it.
I watched the interview on it the other night. It's really good. Like she is,
What's it
she's
on?
it is I think it's like Robin Roberts 60 minutes interview.
ESPN or CBS?
I think it's CBS. I just saw it. It's recorded on my Hulu, and it popped up, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this, as I'm working. And then, yeah, she just said she was in Washington where it was legal, and she had a couple of cartridges, and she, for whatever reason, woke up late for her flight to go to Russia and did not check her bags. She didn't go through. She didn't like, she's like, I've made this trip so many times. It didn't even occur to me. She was like, I woke up a little late. I grabbed my bags and it was in her purse. She didn't think about it and she went. And then, you know, they found it. And she, almost did 9 years or whatever she was supposed to do for that, which it's wild. Like hearing her stories, it was, I can't imagine the shock of all of that. Like, accidentally having a couple of cartridges and then being, you know, in jail for up to 20 years. That's crazy. And being treated like a complete criminal. Like she was just obviously distraught. And her interview was pretty intense, Like you put yourself in her position. It's like how many times have you accidentally done something that was inconsequential for the rest of the day, but you're like, I didn't mean to do. Imagine that causing you to be in jail for. That's
There
why.
looks there's one on ESPN. There's one on ABC. Maybe that could be the ESPN one. There's an MSNBC one. No, I don't look at these. Good
Yeah,
Morning America.
it's definitely worth a watch if you. I mean, well, obviously we were all kind of like, hey, what happened? What really happened? What? And she goes into the details of like how bad it was and her mindset and you know and also she was straightforward. She was like, if I was America, I would not have traded me for the Merchant of Death, but I'm glad they did it, you know. Like she has to kind of live with that too. Because they had a video of her shaking his hand when they did the exchange. Like they shook hands. Apparently he told her good luck, congratulations, and then they went their separate ways. And she was like, she's now spending a lot of time and money fighting for other refugees in Russia that didn't get released. And she did, and she's got incredible guilt around that. She was like, "Hey, I don't. I'm a basketball player. I'm very thankful to get out, but do I deserve it? No." So she was kind of like, "I'm going to use my platform to try to help other people get out," which is pretty cool.
Said I don't deserve it.
Yeah, she was like, "I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have let me. If I was America, if I was the president, I would not let." She was like, "I wouldn't let me out in exchange
Maybe
for the merchant of death."
I mean it had to be something. It had to be somewhat similar done for votes too, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, you got to watch that one. Anyways, no,
Well,
any.
while we're on basketball, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Dawn Staley
Yes.
supporting trans rights to
Yep.
play,
Correct.
and she's recently come under fire for it.
I know. A bunch of people saying that made no sense, and I saw Michael Porter Jr. saying, "Well, that it's okay for me to claim I'm a woman and um, score 50 games in the WNBA." Then, like, I was like, "Wow, that's quite a
Because
commit."
I'm worried about other issues right now besides worry about.
Yeah. I mean, I saw him make that comment. I was kind of shocked, honestly, because I'm like, you're really and for you want a WNBA championship that bad that you're gonna transition yourself into a woman like man, that's I mean it's a theoretical, but like in reality, doing that, it seems impossible. Like no one's really gonna you can say, oh, I'm gonna be a woman so I can play in the game, but like Don Staley's talking about people that truly have transitioned to being a woman, like they believe they're a woman. That's very different than some guy saying, "Oh yeah, I'll just pretend to be a girl and be Juwanna Man and score 50." Like it's not like that. Like
No,
this is your life has changed. Like you are a woman now in every part of your life, that you should be able to play basketball. I tend to agree with that, but
the other thing is that when you're taking medication, right, or taking whatever shot that change your body too,
right.
right? So you don't have the same testosterone and Riley Gaines, is that her last name?
I have no
I
idea.
think swimmer Riley Gaines, yeah, filed a lawsuit against the NCAA
Oh, right, right.
policy, accusing the governing body of violating its Title IX rights and Leah Thomas' participation at the 2022 World Championships. The swimmer who did a much better job, performed much better,
Yeah.
or somewhat better. We talked about it, not even a lot better, but somewhat better. So she testified yes a little while ago, and she and
Yeah, I mean, I understand both sides. I understand if you're that second place, it's got to not feel great to feel you're gonna feel cheated for sure. But let's just let's just say the guy that won that transitioned, it's not like his life is all flowers and rainbows and unicorns. Like this is, some have some empathy.
I know it's an issue that I don't know if I'm for or opposed to, but again, for Dawn Staley to use her platform and be so courageous.
Yeah,
She's gonna catch some beef on some sides, and she's gonna be applauded from other people.
right.
Very curious about some people who we know that have exalted her, who have known her for years and used to play basketball with her, knew her in school. I'm curious what their opinion of her is now.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they respect her. There's no way. How can you not?
Not one of them. One of the people that we know, there's no way he respects her now.
Really? Interesting.
I'm curious to know if one person does and if one, I, yeah, I mean, the one person that we know who will be very highly critical and castigate her. It's common with everything else is with his other politics, but one of the other guys who we know who speaks so highly of her consistently, I'm gonna text him.
See what happens.
I'm very curious to know, like, is he in support of her, or does he have an issue with her?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Um, cool. Anything else top of mind?
Pat Beverly and Jamal Murray.
Yeah, Pat Beverly threw the ball at a fan. That was after the game, right? Or was it during?
At the end of the game, when the fan allegedly said, "See you in Cancun" or something, some reference to Cancun, meaning your season's over, go enjoy vacation.
But he threw a ball at him for an autograph, I assume. Like why did she have the ball?
Do it at it.
No, he threw it at her after she did.
Um, so sorry, I was just writing that text to one of our guys. So I don't know the sequence, but I know he threw it. He threw it, hit her in the head. He hit one woman in the head with the ball. She wasn't
Yeah.
looking. And he threw it again. The guy threw it back at him, and he beamed at the guy, and I think the guy caught it that time.
Huh. I didn't really follow the full exchange.
He
And
hit the
Jamal Murray seemed to be frustrated and threw an ice pack on the court.
he threw a towel at the referee,
Right.
and he threw an ice pack on the court, and nothing happened. Got $100,000 fine, which is like, wait a minute, that's a problem because I think you
The
throw
safety thing. Yeah.
yeah, it becomes a safety issue.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the Pat Beverly controversy, but I'm is it what's the reason behind the NBA not making a bigger deal and not punishing Jamal Murray?
Yeah. I think there are less rules around players throwing things on the court. It's mostly fans, right? It's the control fans more than players is the first instance I've seen of like a player getting out of control throwing stuff on the court. So there probably isn't a really good precedent set. So they're gonna have to go. Adam Silver's gonna have to set the precedent, right? 100 grand is the precedent, then that's that.
Do you think it has anything to do with the potential of losing money if Jamal Murray doesn't play, if they get swept and swept badly, and has to do with ratings and ticket sales and potential game 5 or 6, or no?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they didn't look too deeply into it outside of like, hey, we're gonna find him. That wasn't cool. I don't know. Because I mean, they look like they're in trouble. They lost two at home, and they're going into. I mean, and Jamal Murray was kind of taken out of the game, right? Like they completely negated. They used his calf injury or whatever, but the way they were guarding him really seemed to frustrate Jamal Murray, which I thought was amazing considering he had two game winners in the series prior. So um, we'll see.
Yes, that was also Lakers.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting. I mean, yeah, they look good though. I'm amazed at how well they played those two games. The Timberwolves, like I'm one of those. You're probably similar of the new kind of the new wave of players like in teams like the Timberwolves and the Thunder. I'm kind of like yeah, and until you've done it, like it's hard to rely on like thinking you're gonna win it all until you've actually done it, which is kind of silly, right? Because like at some point you win it all, like for the first time. But it just to me it was like I kind of wrote them off thinking they'd be out in the first or second round because they hadn't done it before. You kind of need to go through the ringer a couple times before you like, okay, these guys are battle tested, but boy, they look tough. I mean, they look like they could win it all, like based on the last couple games. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. But and then Thunder looked great too. I kind of expected it to go the other way, like the old guard of Nuggets are going to pull through and. The Mavs with Luka and Kyrie were going to pull it out, but that could go the other way. I don't know.
I mean, I know we're talking more basketball now. We talked strictly politics earlier. Now we're kind of so now we're attaching them somehow.
Yeah, like we said, they're kind of not really
But I mean, okay, so let's look at the new wave of the people playing, right, and their impact on the game. And I think that you have some young people. There's like when I'm watching Shea guard Kyrie, and Kyrie tried to guard Shea, and I'm like, he doesn't care. He's not thinking about, man, I'm guarding Kyrie Irving, maybe arguably the best, most skilled player in the league. You don't make me nervous. I'm better than you,
right.
right? Is what he's saying. And same thing with Anthony. What's his name? Anthony Edwards. He may be the best player on the court.
Yeah,
But and now you're mixing in a couple of older vets,
right.
at least with Minnesota, right? Apparently they've got a really good defense. I haven't seen them play a lot, but I'm hearing people say that defensively they're incredible. So I think that they both win. They might both may sweep, and that would be a phenomenal series between
And all
Minnesota.
and then an all new Western Conference champion gets crowned. I mean, I guess it happened back in the day with Thunder with KD and Westbrook and Harden. They made it all the way to the finals, right?
What year were they in? Was that there early on, or was that
Yeah, that was very early on. That was right before Harden was sent. That was like the third year of the Harden of that trio
KD had? But you also, I mean, some of these guys have they're like 22, 23, but they're 4 or 5 years
in the
in the
league.
league. It counts for a lot, especially if you're the man with the ball,
Yeah,
right? And some of these guys are so mature.
yeah, it's a lot of reps.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not rooting for OKC, and I like Shea a lot, but he used to call me Pops, and I didn't like that. I see him with Ty after games. Hey, Pops, man, we call him Pops. You son of a bitch. I'm rooting for anybody to get for OKC. I'm not really rooting for Boston either, but
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
good games. That's all I'm rooting for. Like I don't have a dog in this fight, so I guess Sam Hauser maybe getting a title with the Celtics, but I don't love the Celtics either. So
I really like Sammy though. Nice kid. By the way, last thing, and maybe this isn't so much a part of our podcast, but I was on the phone with a guy yesterday who lives in Charlotte, older guy, really good dude, who was a manager in the '70s for UVA, and reminded when I said we were talking about Charlotte and UVA basketball, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we were both agreeing it hasn't been a good place." He said, "Yeah, when I was a manager on the team and I was on the bench, we lost here too. We lost in Charlotte too." He actually is a lawyer in Charlotte, but he's he his daughter's in med school at Chapel Hill. He's one of his kids lives in Charlottesville, and went to UVA. And we were talking about and he bet you Kyle Guy. He said Kyle Guy is killing it in Europe,
yeah, he is.
and
But
he was like,
they dropped him down a level, which I thought was odd.
they dropped him. Is that now he's down a level?
Yeah, he's down a level.
Okay, okay. Because I guess that's not how he explained to me. He said he was playing in the EuroLeague championships or the some championships and had done well. Okay, I didn't know because I know he wasn't playing a lot in Athens.
Yeah, and Athens was the highest, and then they dropped him down a league, and now he's crushing it. Which I don't know why they didn't really play him. They didn't utilize him in that. I think he's actually should be playing at that the next level up. So um, we'll see.
So was he in the year? So, but that wasn't the Euro League that he was
It
playing.
was the
Euro,
EuroLeague. It was the EuroLeague. I think it's just the second level of it.
I don't understand all of it. I wish I did. I need to become educate myself on it so I can go out there and protest if there's.
Yeah, if something happens. Yeah, no, the way I understood it was he kind of got relegated isn't the right word. He got traded to a lower level club. Um, it's but still in the EuroLeague, so it's like the next tier down. And Justin did the reverse. Our Justin Anderson went the reverse. So he got to went up a league to the Valencia.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So they kind
So
of
my
what's that?
so my Toby is too.
Yes.
They're not on the same team
Not on the
anymore, huh?
same team, no. No, same league. And
But
Devin's in that league as well.
Devin's in the same league.
That's Justin, yeah. It's Devin Hall.
Hmm.
They played each other a couple times. It's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah, that's great, right?
so awesome. We gotta get a podcast.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
do. All right.
So
Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.